very much in your face tonight. I feel bad for you, front row. I'm just kidding. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Raise your hand if you've seen me perform before. All right, there's a lot of you. Okay, it's enough of you. Raise your hand if you know what BDS is. All right, here's the thing. Like, normally I start off not with like a lighter piece, but more of like I'm going to start off with a poem called This Poem Will Not End Apartheid. We'll make it like a BDS heavy night. We'll talk about normalization. We'll talk about campaigns. I don't know if I'm part of the talkback session, but I can do that. I totally forgot to get water. Okay, I might take a break in a minute and get water. But here's the thing. I don't know. I'm a little under the weather. I thought we were going to have a mic. What's your name?
Jesse.
Jesse, nice to meet you. Remi. Hey, how are you? Hey, you're great for sitting in the front row. Hi, how are you? Remi, nice to meet you. So if the eyebrows come a little too close, just tell me, I'll back off a bit. Let's start with a little bit about me. My name is Remi Kanazi. I'm a Palestinian-American poet. I grew up in a small town in western Massachusetts. I apologize for the 8 people that have seen me perform before and are going to hear the same tired jokes again tonight. So I grew up in a small town in western Massachusetts. There were 9,000 people in that town. Of the 9,000 people in that town, 8,990 of them were white. Then there was my brown family. We got like a Cambodian family in 8th grade. On top of that, I had this thing called a Palestinian mother. Now, this Palestinian mother was very proud to be Palestinian. What scared the living hell out of all the white children in the neighborhood is that she was really proud to be Palestinian in public. It gets a little more awkward. I was, how do I say this lightly? I was a fat, brown, one-eyebrow child going to Catholic school growing up in western Massachusetts. So let's just say I wasn't like kicking that much game on the playground. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's almost 2 eyebrows now, so they're a little furry. They're like caterpillars running at each other when they get mad. This has nothing to do whatsoever with the first poem that I'm going to do. But just to give you a little bit of my history, when I was a kid, I didn't want Coca-Cola and McDonald's, or I didn't want Sweet and Tabbouleh. I wanted like Coca-Cola and McDonald's. When I moved to New York City, I don't know if you guys have heard of this event, but I moved to New York City 4 months before 9/11. And I don't know if clusterfuck could be described as an emotion, but that's kind of how I felt at the time. I apologize for my potty language in advance. And so after 9/11, and Mark Gonzalez, who has a really awesome poem, and just Google Savages Unite, there was a lot of vitriolic language. There was a lot of racist language, a lot of anti-Arab, anti-Muslim mentality. And I didn't know how to combat that kind of bigotry and the misconceptions about 1.4 billion Muslims, about Arabs in the United States. So I picked up a pen, and I started reading everything that I could, from Edward Said to Chomsky, anything that I could kind of get my hands on at the time that wasn't Thomas Friedman or the New York Times. Fast forward to 2004, my brother and sister took me to go see Def Poetry Jam on Broadway. And it was the first time that I saw Suhair Hamed perform live. It was the first time that I saw a lot of other poets who weren't necessarily saying the word Palestine, but were talking about it. So one of the most beautiful things for me as a Palestinian is learning about my own family, my own history. It opened a lot of doorways into other struggles. So whether we're fighting against police brutality, or against stop and frisk, or against Barack Obama, kicking out another 1.4 million undocumented people, or we're fighting against occupation, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing. It's about fighting against systems of injustice. And one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be at Berkeley is because of 2010 Berkeley divestment, because of pissing off Mark Yudof, because of pissing off your chancellors in your administration, and we are on the right side of history. We are carving out the right pathway, and people are getting afraid of it for that reason. And I'm lucky enough to go to Irvine after this, and UCLA, and UC Davis, and so that's why I wanted to start with this poem on apartheid, because for me as an artist, we are the ones that get $3.1 billion a year in military aid to Israel. We are the ones that give Apache helicopters and Hellfire missiles and cluster bombs and white phosphorus that are used against civilian populations in open-air prisons, 7 of whom were killed this week. It's our government that has preferential trade agreements with an apartheid regime. We act as Israel's veto inside and outside of the UN. So it's up to us to cut that complicity, not just with our government, but with our tax dollars. So for me, as an artist and as somebody on the organizing committee for the US campaign for the academic and cultural boycott of Israel, it's about how we can take words and education and translate that into action. Because it's not just about what's going on in Palestine, It's what we can do about it, how we can stand in solidarity, and how we can cut our complicity. So this is called This Poem Will Not End Apartheid. And I promise I won't speak as fast throughout the rest, and I won't give 10 minutes introductions for each poem. I'm going to start back. This poem will not end apartheid. My words, no matter how beautiful, clever, or carefully strung together, will not end the occupation, allow refugees to return, or create equality within Israeli society. The status quo is a fantasy, telling us it's okay to sit on our hands, called political art propaganda, rather than those who politicize our lives propagandists. Every American citizen should ask themselves this question: why are bombs and white phosphorus getting dropped on open-air prisons with money that should be going to pay for your medical expenses? And dear academics and leftists, I appreciate your books on Israeli massacres, but you refuse to take the bullets out of IDF guns with your stances. The problem is not just the occupation, or put a better face on Zionism, because 750,000 Palestinians were displaced before those settlements were constructed, half of them, before Israel was created. We don't need another book explaining the situation. We need a lesson plan. Stop the next bomb from dropping. Silence is complicity. Over-intellectualization tells us to theorize on the power of art while farmers are kicked off land, children are stolen on the way to school, people are caged and beaten and split from loved ones, bombed and broken in open-air prisons, bought and paid for with our tax dollars. We're part of the problem. That is not theoretical. I don't want to hug a segregationist, wave to you at a separate water fountain, or appeal to you from the back of the bus. A day will come, I swear to you all, when Zionists cower in embarrassment, deny involvement like those who profited off of Stephen Biko's lifeless body and Bobby Sanders' empty stomach. So yes, I'm going to boycott all Israeli products and go to the root of the conflict, because settlements are just the branches of a Zionist program. Every 729 cultural institution and dialogue farce, from Saka to Ahava, Max Brenner to Aroma, Level of Vibe and Motorola, signing a 2-year contract stacks up little to 63 years of continued ethnic cleansing. Finally, to all you artists building bridges between apartheid and normalization, you serve an agenda which rebrands colonialism as enlightened liberalism. Concerts, ballets, and raves in Israel's Sun City, a haven and party stop for pink washers who callously ignore Palestinian LGBT groups fighting against all systems of oppression. Palestinian civil society has spoken. Don't cross this picket line or cash in that paycheck signed apartheid. Put down stolen beauty, cancel that gig, and join the rest of us on the right side of history. My voice is screwed for Davis. That was like as loud as I could go, and I was like, oh, how are we going to do the soft ones now? I have no idea. Let's do another poem. I like this next poem. Yeah, we'll do a bunch of stuff tonight. This next poem is called Home, and you know, I didn't grow up in a refugee camp in Lebanon. I grew up in Western Massachusetts. My father was a doctor. My parents and grandparents were refugees from 1948. My Tete Leonie was 7 months pregnant with my mother when they were kicked out. But at the same time, I had a lot of privilege growing up with the family that I grew up with, right? And I think that sometimes within America, you hear this kind of BS about like survival of the fittest, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. But the reality is that if I lost my job tomorrow, I could go live with my mom in Western Massachusetts. Whereas if my old roommate, whose mom was a single mother, lost his job in New York City when he was a janitor at a gym, he was on the streets within 48 hours. You know, when we talk about Palestine and we look at US militarism, it's not something that just affects us abroad. It's something that affects us at home. We were talking in the car before about the housing crisis. Nobody gave a damn when it was affecting poor people and people of color across this country, but then when it started to affect the middle class in Cincinnati, all of a sudden there was a housing crisis. So recognizing that the bombs that we drop overseas are connected to the way in which we screw people over at home, and if we're not fighting against both of those, especially on this Veterans Day, I mean, this bullshit about supporting the troops. What is supportive about putting a gun in a 19-year-old kid's hand and sending him over to fight a war for profit? Absolutely nothing supportive about that. So this next poem is called Home, and it's about my kind of experience growing up in Western Mass. Hi guys. You guys came on like mad airtime. What time is it? I don't know what time it is. We gave you like a half-hour buffer. I might have to like stand on a chair to project or like yodel. I don't know. Okay. I love how like the fan is pointed at us.
Behind you, that you can stand on.
Then it breaks. She's live streaming and it'll look like an asshole. We'll try. How does this line sound? I didn't grow up in a refugee camp. Can you hear me in the back? Guy who's heard me from before? Okay.
There's a chair right there too.
Should I stand on this?
No.
Just kidding.
Two of us stood on the thing and it didn't break. Two people stood on that bit ago. Time up to 5.
Right.
He moves around a lot. I don't know. That kind of restricts his movement. Just don't fall down.
Maybe I'll come down from this. I'm a little scared right now. I didn't grow up in a refugee camp. I grew up here. Comfortable. Able not to know or care. Choose my own destination. Close the book. Turn off the TV. Forget stories. A gay man once asked me, why do you give a damn about Palestine? Why not, I replied. Why did men and women clench fists and fight back at the Stonewall, push through Matthew Shepard hate crime legislation in Congress? I care about Palestine for the same reason I get emotional watching Schindler's List. Still can't comprehend why kids in my neighborhood picked on Michael Paul just because he was Jewish. Was 10 years old the first time someone called me a sand nigger. And I don't hate the town I grew up in, but I don't forget those experiences either. The way white women on the block talk down to my brown mother. Don't forget the stories. Pretend it didn't happen. Don't feel the need to dream up an alternative American childhood. As if it's vision. Never intended to include me. People fight back because they identify. My grandmother still fills tear ducts with longing memories of Jaffa, a home we in America take for granted. I don't ask anyone to forget about the Holocaust or feel as Jewish because they grew up on Long Island. Not gonna have someone tell me where my loyalties lie, because my physical environment should define who I am. Remembrance is part of action. Never again applies to many people's. Yes, I'm a product of America, but no less Palestinian. Palestine, being that fight for freedom and justice, not just old valleys, beautiful sunsets, and fig trees, not just my grandparents' house in Jaffa that's still standing, not just a place I nervously visited. I could barely catch a cab in Arabic, yet welcome, like they were expecting my return. Home, in the realest sense. I'm Palestinian. I was born in America. That is who I am. Thank you guys. You're doing really good in the front row. High five. High five, Charlotte. High five. Yeah, you feel left out. I know you from Twitter. I know you from. Okay. I mean, you sometimes you see performers, they like throw candy out and shit, and you know, like I'm a huggable guy, I'm a handshake guy, I do like the Star Trek stuff too. The next poem I'm gonna do, it's Veterans Day. I got 2 poems I want to do for that, but it's a little bit softer. Let's do one more Palestine because it's funny. Then we'll do slow, not Palestine, angry, not it's like you want it to be a stew. You throw in the meat, the potatoes. If you're vegetarian, you throw in the tofu. I don't know, can you put tofu in stew? I don't know how it works.
Yes, you can.
Okay, yes, you can. I shouldn't say you should, like, I should just talk about that in Berkeley. Vegan will come out and slap me. They're like, no to militarism. Okay, so this is called the do's and don'ts of Palestine. Now here's the thing, you don't want to be too brown, you don't want to be too angry. I see some brown people and some people that could possibly be angry. It is post 9/11, you don't want to scare anybody, you are wearing things. You know, we have to be moderate and we have to be accessible. So this is a sarcastic take. Oh, hi, how are you? I know you. This is a sarcastic take on things you can and cannot say related to Palestine. I'm going to write a new poem called It's Cool You Came on Airtime. You're like, I'm never inviting you out for a show. Oh, I may look at you. That's fine. So, okay, this is sarcastic. Don't write notes and be like, but Remi said, if I see that shit on Twitter, I'm going to be very angry. Don't call it genocide. We don't want to offend anyone. If we offend them, they'll never listen to us. We have to be reasonable. 1400, just a number. No names, no death. We want peace and negotiations. Don't mention Zionism. If you mention Zionism, they're going to call you anti-Semitic, and people will believe them. Don't cite Palestinian sources. No one would believe you. I wouldn't believe you. Trust Israeli sources. Don't ever be angry. If you're angry, they're going to call you angry. You're white, sorry. If you're angry, everyone's going to call you understandably emotional. We have to be pragmatic. Pragmatism is not a euphemism for concessions, although it may feel that way. Don't mention Allah or martyrs. It reminds them of Al-Qaeda and 9/11. It's not your job to actually fix their ignorance. Don't talk about silly things like boycott, refugees, or the one-state solution. If we want to win, we have to compromise. The road to peace is just ahead. Don't. Whatever you do, don't. This goes out to everyone. Don't make analogies that include the Holocaust, Nazis, or the Warsaw Ghetto. Only Israelis are allowed to do this. We're discussing wars on Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. Don't talk about Haifa, Jaffa, Safed, or where your family's from. But if you do, not when random people say they love Israel. It doesn't matter where you came from, you can't actually go back. Don't, just don't, and that will lead to doing. Now let me just say, like, if I was an NYPD FBI plant, this would be a very easy show. I'm hearing a lot of this and a lot of the clapping and the... Nobody got that joke. Apparently they're not infiltrating your holy place. That you know of. They do that on the slide. The next poem, we're going to do a soft one. No, we'll leave this for Veterans Day. We'll do this one next. So I was saying, you know, I moved to New York City post 9/11, or 4 months before 9/11. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but this t-shirt isn't that tight. I used to wear a lot of t-shirts, even more so, that didn't fit me. You know, that like it's like they fit my little brother, and I don't have one. So at the time, I wore, you know, I had like even more gel in my hair. So people said like crazy racist stuff because they're like, oh, he's Italian or Latino, which is weird going from like the collective minority to be like, hey, Jersey Shore. And I'm like, no, how did I go from like brown to white and still in a weird, awkward minority? So because of all of that, I heard a lot of that vitriolic language. And even the way that we look at the war on Afghanistan, you know, essentially 11 years later, the way that we look at Iraq. I have a new piece, you know, the war in Iraq is over. And you talk to people in Fallujah, 10% of the population was born with birth defects before our wars, and that's when we had sanctions and 600,000 children under the age of 5 being killed, to now 50% born with birth defects in Fallujah. It's a coincidental rise. And so, after 9/11, there was the systematic dehumanization of the Arab and Muslim male. And it's something that had happened long before for the black and Latino male in this country. And there's this kind of crazy idea where we can put 2.5 million people in prison, or we can kill 1,000 Afghans tomorrow, and it's not a big deal because they're in the Taliban, or they were friends with the Taliban, or one time they saw a YouTube video and it said Taliban on it. So, we bombed them, killed 25 people, and when medics came up to clear up the bodies, we did something called a double click and we bombed them again. And this is something that is part of our one-party system, whether it's Barack Obama, whether it's George Bush, in terms of drone bombing Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, in terms of tripling troops in Afghanistan. So when people were saying during the election, the lesser of the two evils, I'm like, to what population are you talking to? And so this is called Before the Machetes Are Raised. And I wrote this in part after reading a book by Layla El-Arian and Chris Hedges called Collateral Damage. It was about soldier testimony about the crimes that they had committed in Iraq. And the other part was after watching the WikiLeaks video where the Iraqi father gets out of the car, is waving his hands in the air, basically saying, I'm unarmed, I'm unarmed, and he's gunned down in cold blood. You know, when you boil people down in a best case scenario to statistics, it's easier to drop that bomb, it's easier to use white phosphorus, it's easier to use depleted uranium, which will poison the soil for generations to come. So this is called Before the Machetes Are Raised. I'm disgusted by terrorism. Backwards animals who have no value for human life produce propaganda videos to disseminate their message, prey on the weakest in society, infect children, recruit fighters like expendable ants in their ideological struggle. You know who I'm talking about? Soldiers who drop bunker-busting bombs on mosques and universities, decry the Middle East, but follow authority closer than dictatorial rule, think stripes and codes rather than decency and humanity give them worth in this world. I've seen one too many Facebook invites by jingoistic kids I went to high school and grade school with. They couldn't wait to get in some trigger time, hunt down towelheads and hajis like venison. And when some Marine's grenade launcher catapults 120 mini bombs per minute, takes out 17 houses and 14 schoolgirls, I'm supposed to feel bad that he can't see his wife and daughter on Christmas, respect his service. When he comes back to the States, a murderer who destroyed a country full of daughters and wives that'll never see Eve. We're so quick to honor the troops, but don't dare mention the widows. The trembling father crying, immersed in his wife's charred flesh, a fetus blown out of her stomach. The soldier said, kicking down the door was too risky. Where's the love for the 25-year-old Iraqi man whose car was riddled with American-made bullets, pain face and surprised look like grabbing for sky, falling in 110-story towers? As long as we don't affect our shit, we'll shout out Darfur, Rwanda, and the need for antiretrovirals. Look at people as aid packages who can't compete, rather than ravaged lands perfecting paradigms of imperialism and propaganda. Where's that right-wing Zionist trying to save the Congo, combating Lviv and Angola, genocide in northern Uganda? Where's the humanity before the machetes are raised and proxy forces put into place? King, Mandela, and Gandhi aren't meant to be easy reference platitudes to make you feel better at night, help you forget that uncomfortable poem Americans don't want to face. We'll worship American idols that have no value for human life. And yet all I hear are 20-somethings telling me they just aren't into politics. I wonder what they say at their parents' eulogy after they were blown up into 386 different pieces. I'm sure they wouldn't discuss things. Because politics isn't their thing. Politics isn't our thing. While we reach out for freedom and justice, we're defined as political. To undermine our suffering, create an ocean of two sides, in equal conflict, cover up our dispossession, and burn down villages, we're political. So you can ignore us, delegitimize and forget us. But we're human beings gracing the window pane, reflecting stillborn images. We're voices, channeling choirs and temples. We're life that won't be forgotten. We're here, and we won't go away. We're the world's shiver. It's cold out here. And whether you like it or not, we're coming inside.
Let me know if you guys can hear okay.
On to more happy ones. I wanna thank the organizers again. UC Berkeley, a lot of familiar and friendly faces for being out tonight. It's really an honor to see a good friend, Mark Gonzalez, and kick-ass brilliant poet in the audience. And it's you know, it's a nice time to be organizing. It's a nice time to be on college campuses. It's a nice time to be writing. It's a nice time to be pushing. Because I think I would say all of us in the room, it's not about symbolism, right? We're not bored. It's not, I'm sure I would go see a movie about a werewolf if I had extra time too. But it's because we care about these issues and we want to see real change, And I don't want to see real change just because it affected my family, but because in a non-Barack Obama cliche type of way, we can live in a better world. It doesn't have to be the way it is. It might not ever be perfect, but it can be better. And so, I write a lot of passionate poetry, but it comes from a place of hope. I work on BDS because I do think it can upend apartheid. I do think it can be one of the mechanisms, one of the tactics, one of the parts of support that can shift things. And so thank you guys for coming out, for organizing, for double majoring, for working jobs on the side, for donating your time, for picking up the food, and for being here. The next poem I'm going to do it's a very soft one, so I might actually have to stand up. But it's called Nakba, and I'm going to try to read a bunch of newer stuff tonight. And for me, like for my Teta Leonie, everything was Yaffa, Yaffa, Yaffa until her dying day. Everything was about return. She never felt at home in northern Lebanon. She never felt at home in Beirut. She never felt at home in the United States. And as much as I ran away from my family history when I was a kid, it was the first thing that I came back to. Were my Teta stories. And I'm not going to do another poem, but she describes like the place that she lived as if it was the size of Los Angeles. The most grandiose, beautiful villa and like the 9,000 orchards. And unfortunately, she wasn't in proper condition to go back and tell the stories and answer all the things once I became as interested as I did. But this is about her experience. I turned away a second and there was a whole other glass of water. We're gonna go traveling on the road together. So it's called Map. And I will stand up for it. Does the standing up here project more, or do I just look dumb?
Yeah, we get both benefits.
She was scared. 7 months pregnant. Guns pointed at temples. Tears dropping, stomach cussed, back bent, dirt pathway leading to dispossession. Rocking boats, waves crashing, people rushing, falling over each other, packing into small spaces, like memories. Her home, mandated, occupied, cleansed, conquered. Terrorizer sat on hills sniping children, neighbors fled on April 10th. Word came of massacre. They stayed, didn't fight, didn't flee. Shells and bombs bursting in air like anthems. Prayed for the dead with priests and imams. Prayed for the living, looking over shoulders for the Ergun and Haganah. She is a warrior, raised life, planted trees, painted fruit, cared for the road as if it was her garden. Orphaned twice, at birth, from Palestine. Whispered Yafa till final breath. Never knew essence until she found emptiness. 48 ways to flee, and she found Beirut. Bullet holes in buildings, reminder of home, but not home. Child born, as Israel celebrated 1 month of settler colonial completion. Years later, daughters sat on hills in the south dreaming of breaking water, thinks of their mother, that warrior, how battles still rage here and abroad, orchards flourish, propagandists called them barons, land expropriated for Europeans who called religion ethnicity, colonists, not native, not from here, plant flags, call it home, rename cities and villages, uprooting graveyards, wiping, cleaning, cleansing memory that this is not theirs. Passed away August 22nd, 2009. Frail hands shook, but trembled. Didn't want to die, but suffered decades. She will speak Arabic, broken English, wounded words and murmurs, her eyes closed, but every so often they blink brilliance. Memories that cannot be erased, uprooted, or cleansed. She has not forgotten. We have not forgotten. We will not forget. Veins like roots of olive trees, we will return. That is not a threat, not a wish, not a hope, or a dream, but a promise.
Did you want to try this one? For Remi.
Thank you guys. I have one, I have two. Okay. I have no idea how many more poems I want to do. I was going to do like a softer set tonight, but now I'm like, seriously, can you give me the softies in the back? Yeah. Oh, thank you. I don't know what I want to do next. What do you want to hear? Okay. You're like, I have no idea. I've never heard your shit before. The next poem I'm going to do, we're just going to keep doing poetry off the page. Mark's seen me perform 9 times. If he's like, oh, I don't want to hear that one again. Okay. This is called Refuse. And I wrote this a little while ago, and I think it's an important piece to do. And when I was writing this piece, I mean, I know a lot of people who have refused to serve in the Israeli army, in the U.S. Army, and especially on this Veterans Day, it's important to remind people that, you know, the ultimate victims aren't the people with a Kevlar vest and the tank and a gun pointed at people in the occupied country. You know, it's not to say that it's easy to refuse, but it's the best of the options. You can't take back what you're going to go do in Iraq and Afghanistan and Gaza. So this is called Refuse, and I've had a lot of conversations with people. And there was a hashtag on Twitter today that said something like, thank our heroes. There's nothing heroic about occupation. There's nothing heroic about apartheid. There's nothing heroic about dropping white phosphorus on civilians. There's nothing heroic about doing what you're told if what you're told to do is wrong. And we have a choice. So this is called Refuse. And especially in this country where people come back with PTSD, no jobs, and they see their VA funding cut. Like, when we talk about support, when we talk about how we're honoring people, honoring somebody, like I said before, isn't sticking a gun in their hand and sending them overseas to fight in wars that they shouldn't be fighting, to fight in wars that those people who sent them over would never fight in, would never let their kids fight in, would never let their neighborhoods fight in. So this is called Refuse. Don't pull that trigger. You don't have to go. Don't have to fight. Don't have to conquer, kill, beat, torture, scar. Your own conscience will eat away at you. remind you, tell you what you did at night, and hallucination and broken sleep and deep sweats and shattered relationships and black eyes. It is not business as usual. You will climb that chair, creep up that ladder, put a rope around your neck, and leap to go back to the way it was. Swallow a shotgun. It will fester, jolt, and choke you. You weren't supposed to be there. Those who sent you won't remember, won't care, won't treat, won't keep promises. You'll die alone, even if surrounded by loved ones. Don't pull that trigger. Step off that ledge. You're not jumping alone. Pull back. Lift that finger, turn in the other direction, walk home. There will be repercussions, but they can't last forever. That will be forever. That gunshot, that trigger pull, that will not end, not be amended. When you come back home, a shell of your former self. When the gunshots stop, the gunshots will begin. Refuse to be damaged. Refuse to be pawned. Refuse to serve their agenda. Refuse. Remember that. You can refuse. So I'm going to do 2 more pieces. Is that good? Is that okay? You getting tired? You got to yawn? You want to go home? You want to go get yogurt man, berry sushi? Go berry? Okay. I'm sweating. Yeah! Okay, a little thing about me. I joke around a lot. And like, so students would be like, hey, you want to go eat afterwards? I was like, food? I've heard of that. I can do that afterwards. And so I'll be like, you know what? Like, I haven't really had sushi in a long time. Like, maybe we could go get sushi. And they're like, okay, cool. And then I was like, you know, have you guys ever had froyo? Have you ever done that froyo stuff? I was like, we can go to Pinkberry afterwards. And I shit you not, like, 5 days a week on tour, I will like eat sushi in Pinkberry. And like, I'll like lie to students and be like, this was an anomaly. Apparently, you guys didn't find that amusing. So this next poem, is called An Open Letter to Too Many Men I Know. And I wrote this, I was having a conversation with somebody about consent and about sexism and patriarchy, rape on college campuses, soft sexism. And just to say from the outset, there are a lot of trigger words, there's a lot of really graphic imagery. So just a bit of forewarning in case that's a problem for anyone. And like, this is something that isn't talked about enough within leftist movements, within SJPs, within organizing, is sexism, is patriarchy. Again, I'm going back to conversations we were having in the car, and it's like, a woman will reach out to you to book the show, a woman will book the contracts, you know, a woman will do all the work, and then a man will pick you up at the airport and act like they run the damn organization. And there's a lot of ways in which people are marginalized and their voices aren't recognized, and beyond that, there's a lot of ways that patriarchy and sexism aren't addressed, as if you know, fighting against injustice stops with the color of our skin or the country that we're from. And so this doesn't talk about that as much, but one of the greatest things about the SJP conference was the first day there was a panel on gender, and it was talking about gender dynamics within groups, and it was about challenging those realities. And some of the nice things that I saw is that a lot of people were kind of oblivious to that, right? We're in a post-racism, post-sexism, post-anything type of world. And it really made people think, and it put them in check. And it's something that we constantly need to address. And you know, you don't need to be raping somebody to be oppressing them. And I think that that's where a lot of men lose focus, and they think, like, I'm not that big bad boogeyman, so I'm not doing anything wrong. And so this is kind of a conversation to me and some people. And Carlos Andres Gomez came out with a book called Man Up, and there was something called Man Up Moments he asked me to be part of, and it was talking about challenging male masculinity within U.S. society. And you know, sometimes we have really good politics on paper, but they're not implemented. And I think that, you know, people are works in progress, but you know, if we're going to say that we're an anti-racist movement, if we're going to say that we're an anti-bigotry movement, we have to be fighting against sexism, patriarchy, and sexual violence. It's not so nobody's here from the SJP conference. There was these 3 assholes in the front row, And in one of the lines, he started laughing. So I have to write a new poem called "Open Letter to the Asshole" in purple. Yeah. That'll be the fall poem. Yes? A woman shouldn't have to say no. Map out autonomy. Life should be a given. Consent created. Protection shouldn't be necessary. Women are not objects, but are often manipulated, broken, and abused like they are. Skirt short. Smile sexy. Lipstick perfect. Until insides are torn up. A fingernail snapped off on the dresser. Right cheekbone cracked, neck lacerated, and face contorted. Readers are still conditioned to ask if a raped woman provoked it. Juries want to see inside her underwear drawer. We judge women in terms of promiscuity, appearance, look, gesture, innocuous green lights as lips, mouths, whispers, alcohol levels. Cry no. We break women, pull their hair out, knead into their tendons, fracture their jawbone without even lifting a finger. We dust off the dresser, booze up the rapist, and tear the tissue in her inner thighs. We are the gateway. Every time we refer to women as whores, let the word slut roll off our tongue like melodies. Men are raised as champions, taught to be proud of what we curse at women from birth. Women in the DRC are hunted like game birds. Drunk frat boys push up on young girls in bathroom stalls, and we act like we don't know where it came from. Call women so addicted to substance crack whores, but don't question a man's indulging penis when he pulls out of one of those broken brothels. She was asking for a fuck. What did she expect with that skirt? I don't condone rape, but you play the part. Lifeless body, teenage girl, just got to college, didn't sign up for roofies, raped, date raped, kinda raped. She drank so much, what did she expect? Rape? No means no. But maybes pervade society through patriarchy, culture, magazines, blaming the victim, not believing the victim. She came forward, but we have more questions for the victim. Lives in a world of maybe. It's easier to turn away than to take a stance. No means no. That extends beyond your mother or sister. No means no. What do you not understand about the words that she's saying? A woman's body is a woman's body. No means no. There's nothing maybe about rape. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I think I'm going to end with this poem. I think that's all I have anyway, whether you like it or not. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing over.
Normalize this.
What? I'm not really going to do that one. I don't want to make anybody from OTI, One Voice, or J Street feel uncomfortable tonight. Just kidding, this next poem's for you. I feel bad if you're from one of the organizations and your friend bought you over, you need to hear this shit. Alright, fine, we'll end with this, right? Okay. We'll end good. Now, I don't know if you got, has anybody seen the video Normalize This of me trying to be cool online? Okay. Thank you. I'm not a hip hop artist, but I think I'm cool, but I'm not. You know, like I was in like a comedy festival, I was like, look at me, and I'm just kind of douchey. So I came out with this video, and it's like just a lot of eyebrows coming at you. It's like, oh, look at me in a different t-shirt, eyebrows. Yeah, thank you guys for checking that out. You can post that around. But so this is the thing. This wasn't even written to J Street. Like J Street sucks at life so much that they don't even deserve a poem. But you guys have Olive Tree Initiative on your campuses. You have One Voice. And like, there's a lot of this BS about normalization, like Palestinians just need to come to the table with Israelis and then walls will fall. The problem wasn't that black and white people couldn't get along in the Jim Crow South. The problem was that white and black people couldn't get along with during South African apartheid. The problem was systematic racism. The problem is checkpoints and outposts and resource appropriation. It's putting people in an open-air prison. It's siege. It's blockade. It's ethnic cleansing. It's bulldozing of villages. It's either are you with oppression or you're against it. I don't give a shit what you look like, what your religion is, what your lack of religion is. If you're fighting against injustice, I want to stand with you, but we need to be real about it. We don't want to normalize sexual violence on college campuses. We don't want to normalize the KKK, and we sure as fuck don't want to normalize Zionism. So this is called Normalize This. Kit Kat, seeds of peace. We can talk more about this shit in the Q&A too. What? Who is the unicorn that keeps busting me out? Okay, normalize this.
Just like how.
Alright, cool.
Proclamation.
I know now. Okay, we're doing this. It's like going for a race. 1, 2, 3, go. See, I'm friendly, right? Nothing is normal about occupation. Nothing normal about apartheid, ethnic cleansing, siege, blockade, settler-only roads, bombing water wells, schools, mosques, and UN buildings. Nothing normal about putting a civilian population on a diet, paying non-indigenous foreigners to settle land that is already populated, rewriting the Nakba with each stolen childhood, trying to desensitize the bullet holes and claw marks put into the bodies of Bassem Abarahme and Rachel Corrie. No, I don't want to normalize with you. I don't want to hug, have coffee, talk it out, break bread, sit around the campfire, eat s'mores, and gush about how we're all the same. I don't want to share the stage, co-write a poem, submit to your anthology, talk about how art, instead of justice, can forge a better path. I don't want to indulge your amnesia about a glorious past, have a therapy session on two sides with equal grievances. The only thing barren is your moral capacity. Blooming a settler colonial state with appropriated culture, I will not fight for your privilege, nor will I seek to normalize it. Your dialogue group is a breeding ground for injustice. Just look at the board members in the ZOA sponsorship. Zionism is a real demographic threat, infecting the minds of millions with racism. They were hooded in the South, pushing darker nations into Bantustans, jailing young men at H-blocks in Northern Ireland. In case you missed the hint, I don't want to pretend all is okay, or that bombs dropped on Gaza don't have a manufacturer, the pilot doesn't have a nationality, or Shimon Peres is any different than Avigdor Lieberman. It's not just the occupation. Stupid. It's the right of return, equality for all Palestinians. It's a transformation from a racist, exclusivist, supremacist state to a nation for all of its citizens. You deserve nothing more than equality, which means more than African refugees are provided in South Tel Aviv. You are the shining light on a settlement hill, reminding the world that racism often comes in nice packaging. We don't give the Sudan $3.1 billion a year in military aid. Don't have preferential trade agreements with North Korea. Don't call Iran a democracy. You're a proxy for empire. A 1950s ethnocracy in 21st century clothing. Yes! You're singled out with aid, weapons, and UN vetoes in your favor. Did I hurt your feelings? Should we hug after the show? Do these words hurt more than bombs dropped on Gaza? White phosphorus eating the flesh of children? I am not the bad guy. You're defending the bad system. Your words and actions have consequences. You're either with oppression or you're against it. I didn't write history. It didn't choose for you to stand on the wrong side of it. Your system of oppression, it is coming to an end. And whether you recognize it or not yet, it'll be liberating for you too. Stop it, everyone. Thank God that was the last poem. My voice is gone. Are you happy now? Are you happy now? Thanks for the mic, Joe. I appreciate it. That's coming from Berkeley. I'm just kidding. Thank you for the ride. Yeah. I forgot to mention this. We have a book called Poetic Injustice, Writings on Resistance in Palestine. Ooh, it's so pretty. My mom says this is the coolest thing to come out since drivers found spare tires. Thank you. At least 3 people laughed at my jokes. It also comes with a CD, so if there are any Arabs in the audience, ooh, look at deal, 2 for 1. Okay.
Is the CD in Arabic?
Yes. No, it's in English. You can pop this into your, I don't know, your car stereo player, and it's like, oh my God, Amy's really angry today. No, just Remi on the radio. Okay, cool. And my mom says if you get a copy signed, it increases the value. So it's like a Mickey Mantle. You put it under the bed, you sell it on eBay 5 years, you're like, oh my God, I just put down the mortgage in my house. So my mom has said none of these things, but she would love it if you bought one. If you have a Zionist friend or a group, know somebody in a normalization organization, you should probably buy 2 for good measure. Yay! Okay, am I walking away? I don't know.
Can we get one round of applause for Remi?